And hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode here on the channel. I am your host, Gilbert Garcia, otherwise known as the Wandering Quill and the Wandering Scribe. Welcome to another historian's interview today. Today, I am joined by a very special guest. My guest today is a researcher, cultural history practitioner, and art enthusiast interested in museology, archiving, and public history. She works in an art gallery and dreams to make cultural institutions more innovative driven to make history accessible to the masses. Joining us here for the very first time, all the way on the other side of the world, our guest today, Srilagna. Srilagna, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me and for taking out time to talk to me. Yeah.
Of course, absolutely. So before we jump into the interview, what can you tell us more about yourself and your background?
Yeah. So basically, I'm Srilagna. I'm based in Kolkata, India. And my background is in history. I was a history student. I still am, I would say. And after that, I have done my bachelor's and master's in history. And now, right now, I'm pursuing a second master's in migration and diasporic studies. And besides that, I am also involved in cultural activities and also working with students and to make history more um, more accessible and to the masses. And I am also interested in archiving and museology and in art in general because right now I'm working in an art gallery as a researcher. So basically, what I do is I conduct the historical research behind the exhibitions that we conduct. So that's my work right now, and I'm also a partition studies enthusiast. I'm especially interested in the cultural and social aspects that the partition of India in 1947 had
Mhm.
on the lives of people in general, of ordinary people. And to just put it in short, I would say that I'm interested in people's history and a subaltern view of history. So yeah, that's what I want to highlight on. And yeah, I think that's what sums it up. Apart from that, I really like doodling. I like watching films. I like listening to music. Yeah, and I'm also an animal lover.
Okay, so your background is way, way extensive. You're probably the first guest I've had that has probably the most extensive background in history and all the other fields pertaining to history that I've had on the show. So kudos to you. That is like wow, that is incredible. And I would imagine, you know, all this probably has stemmed from like years of like being exposed to history. So let's talk about that. So what exposed you to history and what put you on the path to where you are right now?
Yeah, so I think I'm based in Bengal in India. So, and my family, I would say that they were kind of culturally sound and they were always interested in culture and art in general. So, there are a lot of books in my home, and there was always, music playing. And my dad and my grandfather, both of them were really interested in culture and art and just reading in general. So, from a very young age, when my father used to teach me, I just grew this, interest towards humanities subjects. And my dad is from economics background, and my mom is from maths. But I grew this interest in history, which was also the first time in my family someone is, pursuing history or humanity as a subject. So that is something very new to our family as well. But I think that ignited my interest in history. And as I grew older, I think from eighth or ninth standard, I just knew that science is not my thing. I used to be, interested in physics, but apart from that, I did not find much in science subjects. But I was always interested by history mostly, and how, I was really pained to see how many of the people around us, they would just disregard the humanities subjects. And there is this very stupid thing that comes to people's minds when I used to tell them that I'm interested in history or I'm pursuing history. They would say that probably I did not get chance in the other subjects, or I would probably.
Wow, really?
So that is something very disheartening. Um, but yeah, I probably wanted to prove them wrong or something. I was really stubborn in that case. So I pursued history in spite of getting good marks in more marks in science actually. So yeah, I think that's what ignited my interest. And as I grew older in 11th and 12th standards, I would say I was really helped and guided by one of my tutors who, just opened my eyes towards how history can also be, partial or biased in some cases, and how we need to keep in mind the motive of who is writing history or who is producing
Right.
the archives in the first place. So not just to believe the sources because they are just put to us. So I think I think history comes with this essence of questioning. When we learn history, when we learn about our past, it's also about questioning and not,
Right.
uh, irrationally just believing what everyone is saying. So that is the answer to your question, I think.
Yeah, that's probably one of the best answers I've got for the first starters question. So very, very nice. And you actually kind of answered the second question, but maybe you can go more in depth. So you said previously that when you tell people that you are pursuing history, their response is like, "Oh, you probably didn't get into the other major fields of study, or the ones that are usually tied to like strong economic backgrounds." But what else has been the feedback like from professors, from fellow colleagues, and stuff like that?
Yeah, so I would definitely say that at my home, my parents were really, really supportive. And although a lot of, there was a lot of social pressure or like pressure from other family members to make me pursue science, they were always supporting me to just let me pursue what I want. And they could see that I'm really interested in history. All the books that I were reading or the informations that I was interested in gathering were related to, politics, histories, society, and other humanities aspects. So they always pushed me, and that was a really good feedback from home, I would say. Apart from that, there was there I am still in touch with him. I There was another of my mentors who used to teach me biology, but he always pushed me to pursue history because he also knew that I'm interested in it, and used to supply me all these historical magazines and journals and books,
Right.
which also ignited my spark. And apart from that, my friends, I would say most of my close friends in school, they pursued science. So
Mm,
gradually, there was kind of an academic gap that was coming in between me and my friends. But
right.
yeah, but that was not a hindrance to my pursuing history or pursuing my career goals in general. So overall, I would say the feedback was positive, and I think I was so determined to pursue history that I knew that even if the feedback was not good, I would still go ahead with the history because I could not see anything else that I would want to delve into as a student. So yeah, that's what it is.
Nice. Very nice. That's actually really, really awesome. Now, in your education and in your schooling, a lot of professors of very historical backgrounds always play an influence on their students. And I myself know that I had a professor of mine who really kind of opened my eyes and really showed me a different way of pursuing history. So when you went into the history background and met all the different professors, was there a professor who kind of opened your eyes to a new way of studying history? And did that kind of make the pursuing of history much more interesting and better?
Right. I think in this aspect, I would like to talk about two of my teachers, and
All right.
one was the tutor I had in 11th standard when I had already narrowed down my subjects into the humanities subjects. So in my combination, I think I had history, geography, political science, and sociology. So he used to teach me history, and he used to. So he was the first one who actually opened my eyes to these nuances and ambiguities of history as a subject. Because before that, I kind of used to view. I think that was due to the lack of exposure, or just lack of guidance in general. But I used to view history as a very monolithic subject, which just tells us about the past. But these
Right.
nuances about history, that how it evokes questions, how it builds a kind of rationality in us, and also to history also teaches us empathy, right? Empathy, and to be sympathetic to certain situations, and especially with the minorities and the ones who have been marginalized for decades. So I think these aspects were not really clear to me till then. But this sir of mine, he would come, and I used to be really annoyed at him for making me read all these new articles which I did not have in syllabus. But those were new things to me, and he would tell me, to just go through them. These are new things. I know that these are not included in your school syllabus, but it would really help you if you want to study history. I think these are certain things that you just cannot miss out. And one day you would realize that these have done you really good. Well, I did in when I was pursuing my bachelor's. So when I was pursuing my bachelor's, a lot of things which were being taught to us then, those were something I already knew from
Hmm.
these articles which I read beforehand. So that was really helpful, I would say. And till today, I'm still in touch with him. And whenever I do something new, I always inform him. It really gives me a lot of joy to hear, all those encouraging words from him. So he's one person I would like to talk about. And another person that I want to talk about is this. Actually, in college, there were a couple of professors who, there was one professor who taught us um, Western Western political theory.
All
So
right.
Hegel, Kant,
Hmm.
those were the things that I was really, really scared of, because theory always scares me. I am always, comfortable with practicality and just learning things from, hands-on experiences or empirical experience. But sometimes we just cannot dodge theory anymore. So that course was really difficult, but it was really interesting, and the way she taught it, coming to the level of her students, that was really intriguing. And there was this one course on transnationalism that was also really good.
Mm.
Those talked about the aspects of cultural theory, social relationships in the transnational phenomena. And there were so
Right.
many things that little things that we kind of overlook in our daily lives, that I got to know in through that course, and to pay attention to that. And the funniest thing is that through all of these experiences, or through all of these lessons, the thing that I got to realize is something very simple. It's because to grow your interest in something, you do not need to be a historian, or you really don't need to learn history in that case. But if you nurture a deep interest in the little things that make us who we are today, uh,
Hmm.
uh, it does a lot of work. So yeah, I think those were the things that were really crucial to uh, building up my interest in history, or the view of history that I support today.
Nice. That's actually very, very cool. And like everything you told me about, like you've really had a lot of great professors that really, really sort of molded you into the historian that you want to be. And that kind of leads into my next question. when you are working on projects or articles or research papers, and when you're presenting history, how do you approach it? Do you write for an audience in mind, like history students or the general audience, or do you write in the sense for you as if this is something that you would want to learn about?
Right. So I think that that really depends on where I'm writing it or where I'm presenting it. So whenever I would give out a lecture or write somewhere, it might be on a blog, it might be in a journal, it might be in a magazine, and it also might be in a very theoretical research group. So all these different sections, they cater for different audiences, and when I write, I try to keep that in mind, that who will be reading it. And if I'm writing for students, that would be completely different from the kind of content I would write for a research paper, in a completely academic research paper, or in a blog. So if I'm writing, so I have written in a lot of blogs in general.
Hmm.
So that was really different, because the kind of audiences that blogs cater to is really the kind of audience that I am, because while I'm traveling, or while I'm just bored of too much academic stuff, I just go through blogs and just read them. But they should be about something that interests us. And the key to writing about blogs is that you can't really make it too monotonous, and
Right.
you have to always include anecdotes and personal memory experiences, or something that is relatable to your audience. So that
Hmm.
is something special about writing in blogs. And working with children is also very rewarding, I would say, because I have conducted workshops for children on history recently. We went to this town called Bhubaneswar in Orissa in India. So and we went to I went with Max Muller Institute, which teach German in India. So we went with them, and and we talked to them about the history of Anne Frank and the Second World War. So that was really new to them, and the way they responded was really interesting and rewarding. And so the key to connect with students is that when you were explaining something to them, explaining something historical or uh, quote unquote theoretical to them, you have to come
Right.
down to their level, and also just speak to them in a without a lot of jargons. That's what they prefer, and you have to make them interested through relatable experiences that you can share. So that they also demand a different kind of approach, I would say. And regarding research papers, I think it all starts with the abstract. The more concentrated and what would the word be? I mean, the more dense the abstract is,
Right.
the easier it is to write the paper. So I think while approaching a paper, I generally gather all the sources that I can get my hands on, and just go through them in general, and then focus on some key points that I want to keep in mind while I'm preparing the paper. So yeah, and after that, the writing of the abstract is the next step, and it becomes easier with all the sources in hand, and then we can approach the paper. And I think I always, while writing the paper, I um, generally prefer writing with subheadings, so that it's easier for me to reflect on as well, and also it breaks the monotony for the audience as well. So because it has happened to me several times that I have gone to a conference and I was dozing off in the middle because I was so bored from the lecture. So it happens often. So I really don't want my audience to sleep during my lecture. So I try to break the monotony with, and also incorporating, I think, visuals,
Mm.
images, videos, interviews, just snippets of other experiences, that those really help. So yeah, that's what it is.
Nice. And is that sort of almost like the promise you're making to students that you take along these workshops, that the history that you're going to present is not only informative and academic, but it's fun and it's easy for them to understand? Because I think it's probably the most challenging thing when it comes to history is making it engaging, and also depending on the subject too. Some subjects are more fascinating than others, but depending on the person, you can make that very bland subject, even though history isn't bland, but like not a lot of research or even scholarship on it can be more
Right.
exciting than before.
Exactly. And also it in in science subjects we always get these practical experiments that are conducted in schools, but in history and in other subjects from the humanities background, these things are never paid attention to. If you want to make children
Right.
interested in history, you have to make it engaging. You have to make it fun for them. Otherwise, they would not feel interested towards the subject. So during this workshop, also we conducted a lot of activities which put them in the position of Anne Frank, for example, and just
Mm-hmm.
think the whole situation through that girl's eyes, because Anne Frank was also a teenager, and it would be really relatable to them.
Right.
So these are the things that can make it work actually.
Nice, nice. And now moving on to a very more serious topic. And I think it's very important that I always answer or ask this question to all my historian guests. So as you probably may see in the world when it comes to history, history is constantly changing, which is good. But sometimes, more recently, history has come on a lot of fire with some elements of history being taken out or removed or being rewritten, and that damages, the preservation of history. And with seeing that, it's kind of like the field's under attack. We're trying to do it, and it seems overwhelming, and it kind of will deter some historians away from the field, or at least maybe rethink. And I know I've met a lot of people that have felt that way. So for you, with that in mind, with this event that's happening all over the world, what still motivates you to pursue history, and why do you think now more than ever it's important to preserve it, record it, and discuss it?
Right, it's a very interesting question, and especially where I am right now in India, um, uh, I can say that history is in danger, and I mean throughout history we have seen that when you want to brainwash people, or when you want people to, when a specific group or community want people to be on their sides in general, they would try to whitewash history in some cases. So
Right.
if you can alter the past, it makes it easier for you to, make people believe whatever you are telling them to. And it is historically true. And everyone who has tried to, every fascist government that has tried to do that have done it through the replacing of facts and informations in historical, historical span. And now it is happening in, in more than 5, 6 countries in the whole world, including India. So
Hmm.
in India also, there has been a lot of developments in this case. There has been widespread saffronization of history in general. There were chunks of Islamic history that were categorically removed from the school syllabus, just because these people, these political groups are trying to view India as a very monolithic cultural space, as a quote unquote Hindu space. They're trying to make
Right.
India only for Hindus. So, but that is historically not true. So, what would they do? They would try to rename all the places that have Islamic, Islamic roots. They are changing the names of places, stations, buildings which have Islamic names.
Right.
So, and they are also removing these chunks of Mughal history or Islamic history from the school syllabus. So if you can brainwash or whitewash the studying of history from a very young age, then there would be no one to question it. And
Mm-hmm.
also, along with that, there are a lot of different kinds of repressive measures that every fascist government depends on. So some of them are kind of violent, and some of them are soft or subtle in some cases. So
Mm-hmm.
they would find one or another way to make you shut up or just not question, because if you question, it becomes difficult for people in power to just continue with their supremacy. And coming back to your question, history becomes a very important tool for every government,
Mm-hmm.
to just to probe into the minds of their subjects. And India had been colonized for 200 years, and even these people, like our colonizers, the British, they also used history to, categorically just make up a societal or cultural background for the Indians themselves. And they said that no, you Indians have no history, but we would tell you your history. So and Indians actually believed that, because
Mm-hmm.
it was made to believe that they were made to believe that they were not really civilized, and they were natives, and the colonizers would civilize them. So history has been used as a very important tool in that case as well. And I think the only, if you ask me, what is the remedy to this, or what is it that we can do to prevent this, or to just, I think the only way is to be alert, to be
Mm-hmm.
cautious, to just yourself and also people around you, just tell them just that for now, like now more than ever, we should be cautious towards what kind of information we are taking in and what kind of information we are passing on, because it's really scary, the kind of false information or rumors that are being passed on through social media nowadays, from one
Yes.
person. It's scary. So from one person to another, you wake up one morning, you see something very communal or something that sparks out hatred against some community, and you just believe it. So, and you pass it on to another person. So, in this way, it's a never ending cycle. So, I think being alert and being cautious and just think it through rationally, and of course with empathy, is the key to just to resist this whitewashing of history, I would say.
I 100% agree, and it is true, especially now. Unless just if you've been watching me for the last year and a half, I've always been very critical of like the preservation of history, even if the history of either our own home country or countries abroad, like all countries have histories that are not pleasant. They are some of the most horrible things in human history, have some of the most violent acts against humanity, but they are important to research and to understand so that way we can prevent future calamities from ever happening, and also calling out such calamities based upon the research and the scholarship. And I 100% would agree. I remember one of my friends back in college when he talked about the history of modern India. He actually brought up your point that when the British came over, and especially the British East Indian Company who came over to India in like the late 1790s and established the rump states, that's where they sort of created the idea that the modern, and I use that term loosely, the modern Indian state began in 1793 with the British East Indian Company. But as you said, India's history is much, much older than that. And heck, it's like one of the oldest histories in the world, especially when you look at the Maryatha. I'm probably butchering that name, but the empire that fought against Alexander the Great during the 400 BC, especially the Mughal dynasty in medieval history, which is probably one of my favorite periods of India's history. I just absolutely love it. But it is true because there's so many things about history of one place, but more recently it's been being destroyed, and it's very, very damaging. And that kind of leads into my next question is, so when seeing this and seeing how to combat it, we always have to think of like new ways to approach history and try to counteract these people who think they know. So my question for this is, what professors have sort of been your role models in like your understanding of history and presenting history? Because I know how we learn history is very different from also how we present it, because especially in our speech, in our writing, and how we communicate with others.
Yeah. Uh, Role models, I would not say that there is someone specific I have in mind, but there have been many individuals definitely who were in tutorial positions and who have lent out their valuable guiding advices, or just to open my eyes to a specific aspect of history. But I would like to focus on something different when you say that what guides me through how to view history differently, or how to resist
Hmm.
these efforts to change history in general. So I have been working with the 1947 Partition Archive. I don't know if you've
Oh.
heard about them.
I
So
think I may have, but please, let me know more, and actually let our viewers know more for those who have not heard of it.
yeah, so 1947 Partition Archive is this archive is based in California in Berkeley, and it is headed by Gunita, who is from India, and she's a Punjabi from India. And they basically record stories from the witnesses of the 1947 partition, when India was partitioned into when British India was partitioned into India and Pakistan, and it basically led to a lot of riots, a lot of
Hmm.
killings, loss of property and lives, and many tortures episodes followed, and so that's a really traumatic and horrendous experience for those who lived through that time. So what they're trying to do is they're trying to gather the oral testimonies of these people and archive them in their repository. And also, I think annually they open up their archive of around 11,000 stories, oral histories basically. So they open up their archive to researchers who can further work on these interviews and use them in their research papers, or whatever they're doing in their academic careers. So I've been working with them, and I have been interviewing a lot of partition witnesses who were first hand witnesses of the partition, and that was, I would say, really fascinating. And I got some of my most important lessons on history and how history connects humanity and theory, and
Right.
different history is from paper to when it comes to reality. There's
Hmm.
a lot of gap in that, and how can we bridge that gap, and also how to make history a part of our everyday lives, of our everyday understanding. I got very valuable lessons about that from these witnesses, and because many of them had to leave their homelands forever, and when they left their homelands they did not know that they're not coming back again. So a lot of lessons about pain, and how history has been used as a tool to just alter people's lives, and how people sitting in positions of power and authority, with no relation to the daily lives of ordinary people in general, they can take decisions which can uh, play havoc on the lives of ordinary people, and that can lead to so many killings, so many
Hmm.
loss of properties. So these are, I think, flip sides of reading history, because on most days when I go through these and go through these interviews and sometimes books which really triggers me, I have spent sleepless nights to just think about those things. But I think this is also part of understanding history, and
Right.
um, of not being fearful of what we have to confront, because that's the truth. And sometimes what the truth is being presented to us is not really the truth, and truth differs from person to person, that is true. But there's no way we can deny that or run away from that. So I think the haunting that comes with understanding history, or comes with just going through our past and learning the nuances of it, that is one of the significant aspects of being a history student, I would say.
Nice, very, very nice. See, that's why I love doing these historians interviews. I learn so much from my guests, and I learn so much about their thought process, their backgrounds, and it always fascinates me. And then it kind of leads into the next set of questions before I get to the conclusion. So one of the questions that I want to ask you is, so with all that has happened to you, your background, the project you've been a part of, the people you've met, have you had a sense of validation from others in the historical community, either in India or online? And how has that made you feel? Or have you not sort of had a sense of validation, but are still proud of the work you have achieved in your field?
Yeah, no, I think in this aspect, I'm quite lucky because I have connected with people who value my work and who value the viewpoint I share. And I have met like-minded people and people who are as opinionated as me and are keen to hear what the other person is saying. I think that is one of the more most important aspects of being a history student, is that
Hmm.
history is all about debate, yeah, but you
Yes.
also have to listen to what the other person is saying, because sometimes on the TV we see that when the debates happen, everyone is talking and no one is listening, and it's like a complete chaos. So I think discourses start like this, and in history you have to listen to the other person, and then you can revert back. You can disagree. That is completely fine. So yeah, I have been lucky to connect with people, especially online. I would say I have met with people online from abroad. I have been working with this association of former British colonies, and I was a core member there. And I think there were two or three members from India, and I was one of them. So that was also a very holistic experience. I was interviewing a lot of educators, cultural practitioners, even people who are dealing with psychology, to understand intergenerational trauma and how memory and these experiences can change our view of history or how we perceive history.
Right.
So I always learn so much from people I connect over LinkedIn, over Instagram. So that has definitely fueled my interest in this subject, and also to connect with other like-minded people around. And yes, I have been my work and my efforts have been validated, and yeah, that's something that made me feel really good. It's always very encouraging to hear these words of appreciation from people from your own field, or even people
Right.
from your field who share your interests, I think. So I think the social media is a blessing in that sense, because how else would we have connected? I mean, we are talking today because of social media.
Right.
So
It,
yeah.
it's It's 100% true. And as I've always said also on this podcast and on this show, being a historian is amazing, but it's also a very, and truthfully, it is a very lonely experience because we are isolated. We're constantly working on our work. Either it's like our dissertations, research projects, theses, and so forth. And we're giving so much of our time and effort. And it is a very lonely experience. But the
Yeah.
beautiful thing about history is that we're able to connect with other people and learn so many different things. Like I am learning so much from you, and you're probably learning so much from me, and that's the beautiful thing when it comes to history. And also, is another thing about history too, it's very flexible. History is always the more fascinating subject, but if we're being honest, truthfully, it is probably one of the most difficult subjects to find a career in. We normally have to make the career from our passions, either that independent researchers, freelance consultants, and so forth. But as historians, as I said before, we're able to interact with these different people, learn from them, study from them, make connections, and then from those connections, we're able to get opportunities. So, with all that in mind, Srilagna, have you ever had a moment in like your own private time thinking about, wow, how different would my life would be if I didn't pursue history? Has that ever come across your mind? And if so, what was that life like, or what was that vision that you had?
I honestly could not imagine that because I really cannot imagine myself being a doctor or an engineer because um, because it's impossible. And even after even now, I think some of my relatives or any family friend, they would sometimes say that you don't earn so much right now, but if you had been a doctor or an engineer, you would have earned like.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So I said that no, I think I'm happy. I don't have a lot to ask for from this field. But yeah, I think that history is very rewarding. And as you said, collaboration is the key. After you have completed your studies, I mean so-called studies, after we have completed our schooling, collaboration is the key. And the more we
Hmm.
connect with people, far near and far, it's more rewarding, and it's always great to know what the other person is doing, and if it fits our interests, then yeah, definitely, that is something that we can use in our own researches as well. But no, I really cannot imagine myself doing anything else other than history.
Nice, nice. Well, we've now reached towards the end of the interview, but before we officially end, there's one last important question which I always like to ask my guests. And Srilagna, that question to you is, what is your word of wisdom to people wanting to pursue history and get into this field? What would you tell the next generation of historians?
Um, I think I mean we are still learning, but it would definitely be more difficult for the next generation, since there is so much of efforts to whitewash history and to alter history, especially in countries which have a kind of oppressive government or a fascist government. It's definitely difficult, more difficult for them. And I think they would face very intense and very vital challenges to view their daily lives in the shadow of their history, or in the shadow of their past. But I think what makes us humans in the first place is to respond to something with our own wisdom or with our own confidence, I would say. To just respond or to judge something with rationality. That's what we learned from Enlightenment, right? Or
Hmm.
Enlightenment, Renaissance, or from the New Age with science, everything. We have learned to view things with rationality. And if we can do that, a lot of things become easier. If we stop uh, believing things that are being fed to us blindly, then we really don't need history courses to make us understand what is right and what is wrong, what is
Right.
true and what is false. So I think that's one thing to not forget, that we have the right to question what is being fed to us. We must not stop questioning. We must not stop engaging with facts and figures and information that we are getting our hands upon. I think that's one thing. And the second thing is that not only for history students but for everyone, I think, but especially for history students, since history comes with so much of violence and so much of I don't know. There's a lot of intense stuff in history that we
Hmm.
sometimes find it hard to tackle, but we have to go through these difficult portions of history to understand our past. And uh, yeah, so I think what we can do is build an empathy, and to treat every fact or every information, every chapter that is coming to us from history with empathy, and we should always be, transparent with our feelings. That is the second thing. And the third, but a very important part of studying history is to realize that history is about the past, yes, but history is also about the present and the future. And that is a very important thing to keep in mind when we're studying history, because how our past happened and understanding that, and doing certain changes to our thoughts and our experiences or our lifestyle, or how we deal with people in general, how we connect with people in general, that plays a significant role in how we are shaping our future. So history also teaches us what mistakes we have made in the days that have gone by, and to not repeat them in the future. So yeah, I think that's what I would like to say to the next generation.
That is probably one of the most well spoken, well informed, probably the most articulate answer I have gotten on the channel, and I absolutely love it. So thank you so much for that. And with that, listeners, we come to the very end of our interview. I want to thank our guest, Srilagna Majumdar, for joining us today. Thank you so much. And before we officially end today, um, where can people find and engage with you? They want to know more about your background, or do you have any links to any projects you're working on that you would like to share?
Yeah, so apart from my social media handles, you can find me on Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook, where I'm with my own name. So Srilagna Majumdar. I have my link tree there where you can access all the academic things I have been working on. So that's where you can check out my work. Apart from that, I would definitely want people to check out the 1947 Partition Archive, because that's what I have been actively engaged with. And you can just check their website, and they really have a lot of important resources that one can go and check out. So yeah, I think those are all that I want to share.
Awesome. I will link those down below so you can check them out. And again, listeners and viewers, thank you so much for joining us for another Historians episode here on the channel for 2024. Again, I want to thank our wonderful guests for joining us today. Srilagna, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for providing your insight, and we wish you continued success in your field.
Thank you so much for having me and for your time. It has been a great thing to talk to you. Yeah.
You are most welcome. And listeners, be on the lookout for future episodes coming out this week and later this month. Make sure to follow my newsletter. And as always, this has been the Wandering Quill and the Wandering Scribe signing out.